Without a doubt, Armored Skeptic is a full-blown conspiracy theorist, and this is his Atlantis stuff. And this is the video how the Giants built Atlantis.
Of tinfoil helmet. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Tinfoil Helmet. Atlantis is a really hard subject. I've actually made fun of videos talking about Atlantis before.
Thoth and friends constructed an entire network of temples and structures along this grid fourth dimensionally, and then it needs about 13,000 years of continuous energy flow for it to actually turn on.
But I promise you, Atlantis was real. I'm gonna give you a quick recap.
I'm not going to call him Dave. I'm going to call him Greg. Atlantis was real. Plato wrote about it once, and now he's on some Atlantis shit. Good fucking God, man.
But honestly, you should go back and watch the whole series, if not just the first video. There's a lot of...
This is where I was going to watch it, and he said, go back and watch the series, and then I was like, all right, I got to do it. So, yeah, I've done that. I'm in.
Already set up that I'm not going to go over again. So we've made it this far in the series, we can start to put all this information together, but what does it really mean? I know some of you have come here already knowing what I'm gonna say. I feel like everyone should know this by now. And if you don't know this by now, you got some catching up to do. This is it, everyone. This is the big show. I'm proving Atlantis.
So cringe, man. I know I'm a guy in a corn suit, but he's just so fucking cringe to me. Anyway.
But before we get started, I have to thank today's sponsor, Raycon. Raycon, of course, was co-founded by Ray J, but it already
hits, dude. He had NordVPN, I think. He had Raid Shadow Legends, and now he has Raycon. He's just a highly sought after person. I've turned all of these people down. I'm above that. Okay, I am literally above it. It's I spit on sponsorships unless you're a based company, in which case I'll do it immediately.
Everyday E25s come in a bunch.
Shut up.
Even
Shut up.
Ace.
Shut up.
The
Shut up.
price.
Shut up. Shut up.
15% archaeological evidence of your purchase. So far,
he's a bit loud. I'll turn him down. There you go.
in the series, we've established that there's plenty of archaeological evidence from ancient sites to prove that our history books are a complete lie. And there used to be a global civilization over 12,000 years ago, during the last ice age.
He has genuinely not proven these things. I know he just said he did do that, but he's not done it.
Then in the second video, I demonstrated that the old world had harnessed the power of electricity and understood it much like Nikola Tesla did, integrating their technology into their architecture and turning buildings and structures into electricity-generating machines based on the same design as the ancient pyramids of the Giza Plateau.
That is a good summary of the conspiracy theory that he is trying to pitch. Yes. Good job. He believes that the pyramids are batteries. That's true. He made a whole video on it. It's like 48 minutes long. We watched it all. You can check it out. Doobly-doo.
And in my last video, we explored how early Homo sapiens used to be ruled.
Get to farm! So 36 months of prime.
By another species of humans called Homo denisovans. They were at least 3 times our size, and they were much more technologically advanced than sapiens 30,000 years ago. If we go by their statues at Göbekli Tepe, the oldest ones were very tall. Then over time, they slowly shrank. But do you think that the first ones were actually this tall? And in that video I called them many things. The giants, the coneheads, the sons of God, the angels, the Nephilim. These were the gods, or the ancient aliens.
He thinks ancient, this is real, he thinks ancient aliens is silly because they're actually ancient terrestrial godlike people. That'll prove it. This is more rational.
Of the old world, these albino giants were the rulers of Atlantis. I started this series off by promising you that I was going to solve the riddle of the Sphinx, and I am building up to that. The Sphinx is the key to understanding that there used to be a civilization during the Ice Age, because the erosion on the Sphinx is at least 12,000 years old. But the single greatest enigma from ancient Egypt are these vases. These are found in the oldest burial sites from dynastic Egypt, but they're made from solid granite, and they're older than the pyramids. Egyptians from that era should have no idea how to work with granite like this.
They should have no idea how to work with granite? I don't know why he thinks it would take gods to rub a rock good. To rub a rock until it looks different. You just rub it till it looks different. They're like, really? That's it? They're like, yeah, we're gods. That is it. Rub it and it'll look different later.
Not only should they not be able to shape and form the outside of this vase, but
stone didn't exist.
They've hollowed it out, like a normal jug. There is no fathomable way they could have done that. And again, I remind you, these are the oldest artifacts. Most of them were found in burial sites, so obviously these were heirlooms from Atlantis. I want to be clear here, when I say Atlantis, I don't mean the specific city described by Plato that was ruled by Poseidon. I mean the global civilization that existed during that time. There are a lot of really good possible sites for where the city could be, but I don't want to make this video about that. Now, if you remember,
I don't want to actually find Atlantis. Do you think he might go like, but I actually do know where it's at. It's really easy to find it. Easy.
Remember Peru, these strange stone walls. Did you know that this style of architecture can be seen all around the world? The trademark of Atlantis is
stones. Again, the high technology of stacking stones. Yes, it is impressive when they stack stones like this. But may I remind you that this is stacking stones. Like, it's really good stone stacking. That is very good stone stacking. But
is most obvious in South America. Preserved high up in the mountains, we see amorphous stone blocks that are perfectly curved, bent, and twisted around each other to
what would be the benefit of doing that?
Make a nearly perfect seal on all four sides. The bottom of each stone is convex, and the top is concave. They cup into each other so that no matter how much the stones shake, they always settle perfectly back into place. The walls are basically earthquake-proof. The most common term for this style of architecture today is polygonal. We see this exact style of architecture.
I hope you have a fantastic day.
Purple Nickel, thanks for 23 months.
In India and Cambodia, there are several temples built in this style. In Greece, there are a few examples.
Humans stacking stones. We're fucking covered in stones. It's a stone planet. Stones and water. That's what we got most of. Yeah, bro. Where do you think they got these stones from? The same source. Do you think that the stones, when they break them from the source, may break in ways that allow them to stack together like puzzle pieces? It's almost as if many of them were harvested from the same areas and chip off the same block, if you will. Like, does he think they're just finding these stones and carving them? Sometimes you do. Oftentimes you have to harvest them from a stone quarry. Like,
not just walls, but even a pyramid. There are several examples in Italy as well. Of course, there's some in Turkey, but really, Turkey's got a little of everything. Not a ton of people know about the walls in Japan. Most of these walls today are the bases of temples and palaces, and there's a lot of simple design features that tie these sites together. Another interesting trademark, a lot of these stones actually have these funny nubs, and there's a lot of debate about what the purpose of these nubs are. There is no purpose. You're not supposed to see them. Regardless, you can see these nubs in several of these megalithic sites. Did you know that the base of the Menkaure pyramid was built in this style? And looky-loo, it's got nubs too.
They got nubs! Oh, shit. Nubs and stones. This is proof of the aliens. I'm not high enough. I can't believe it. I just can't get there with them.
They all use the exact same angled doorway design. They also use the exact same angled window. And in
this is a product of math and like physics. Like this is this is just how stuff happens. Can you believe that they discovered wheels all over the place, and they discovered fire, and they discovered fucking cooking, and how to... Yeah. Wow. And they all live next to fresh water. And they rely on agriculture, and they have shelters. God, fucking... It's strange how all these similarities only come when you find the most basic of human needs involved. Carrying stuff. Well, we do need to do that.
My Conehead video, remember that I showed you how the giants migrated through the...
Conehead video. Literally. Good times, man. This is fun, Greg. High Denisovan frequency.
Polynesian islands, across the ocean to Easter Island. Well, would you be disappointed if Easter Island 2 did not have their own Atlantean walls? So now we have to answer the questions. How did they do it? And how...
He slipped in calling them Atlantean walls. Geopolymer. Let's go.
How do I know that they were giants? A new word we're going to learn today is geopolymer. Now, this is a technology that we've only just recently started to develop. Similar to concrete, geopolymers are stronger and more permanent bonds, creating a concrete that's much more like a real rock. The stuff we make today requires a lot of different chemicals and mixing, but I'm not saying that they did it back then the way we do it today. I'm just saying they had their own geopolymer technology. No man in the universe has spent more time studying these stones than Brian Forrester. Unfortunately, he and I disagree on how
he and I disagree.
These stones were...
I disagree with the guy who's studied them.
Carved. He believes that it was with tools that are more advanced than the ones that we have today, and though I believe that he's uncovered legitimate examples of ancient machining, the vast majority of these stones were softened and formed like bricks before they were re-hardened. Of all the stones that he has showcased over the years, none I find more interesting than the damaged and eroded ones. Natural granite is an igneous rock. As it forms, it mixes with itself and even picks up imperfections, unlike limestone that forms in sheets. When it erodes, it absolutely can break off in sheets. But granite can't do that. This stone should not have been able to peel like an onion. If this granite has layers, that means that the outside of the stone hardened at a much faster rate than the inside of the stone. That is
Yeah, and I still think that the guy who visited the site knows more than Greg. Anakai, even if he is a loony. I still think he would. I don't know. I've seen rocks that look like this, where they have other rock inside. It happens. I don't know. This isn't that weird.
Entirely unlike natural granite. Now it's story time. Legend has it that when King Solomon...
This is when the story begins, right now.
was building the temple in Israel. He didn't want to use any iron implements because they were considered weapons of war. And he wanted to build a temple of peace. But how do you carve giant stone blocks without iron tools? The story goes on to say some sort of mystical bird dropped something on a rock and was able to turn that rock into a nest. That sounds like a dumb story. Sure, but there are many legends around the world describing birds using sticks or leaves to turn rocks into nests. Here's a little story that popped up on the Graham Hancock website on the Brian Forster.
There's stories about birds making nests. Wow.
Subforum.
He was going up a valley, the Paraíba Valley in southern Peru on the Amazonian side. He came to a granite cliff in a gorge. This cliff was absolutely upright, like a wall. And then there were these perfect little round holes all over it. As he came down the trail, he saw little birds that went in and out of these holes. So he said to the people, "What's that?" And they said, "Well, they nest in those holes."
The villagers described that these birds drilled these holes themselves using little twigs. What? The answer to this riddle is...
By the way, if you guys want one for the meme, well, I mean, he's right there. You could just take it. Here you go. Here you go. Oh, I like it when it's...
Oh, well, what more squish?
There we go. Perfect. Oops. I F11 this screen, not accident. Okay, I'll take a screenshot. Bam. There we go. I'm going to send this to Sarah for no reason.
What? The answer to this riddle is so simple. This is a simple chart. It describes how when a tree is drilling its roots into the soil and it encounters rock, like granite or basalt, that it will find and exploit cracks in those rocks. But it's not always that simple. Sometimes the tree runs into roadblocks. It can't find a crack.
I'm sorry, I was sharing a meme view. I fucking tuned you out.
Is so simple. This is a simple chart. It describes how when a tree is drilling its roots into the soil and it encounters rock, like granite or basalt, that it will find and exploit cracks in those rocks. But it's not always that simple. Sometimes the tree runs into roadblocks. It can't find a crack, or the crack is too small and it can't make it bigger. The tree is able to excrete a chemical compound that dissolves the rock. Trees can literally melt or powderize rocks or heavy metals. That process is called chelation. I hope it also makes sense now why trees absolutely love growing on these ancient temples. And now some of these old mysteries, like how did this wall melt? How did these stairs melt? Well, now they're not really that fantastical a mystery, are they? And now the quarries make sense. All of the supposed quarries in Peru look more like piles of clay that the builders were scooping from, as opposed to now.
It does? Does it? Does it look like clay?
Natural formations that they were carving from. A lot of areas where the stone is strange and amorphous, and some
couldn't be the thousands of years that have gone by since then.
Some of them almost look like slag piles where they were throwing all of the imperfections.
Rocks are slag piles, Greg. Wait. Lots of rocks are slag piles. That's how rocks happened. They were once molten. All things were once molten. Some of them were churned up in cold ways. Some of them were, tectonic activity churns them up. Sometimes volcanoes spit them out. It's all sorts of stuff that can happen, man. They're gonna look in all sorts of different ways. Ask a geologist.
Oxalic acid.
Okay.
It's called oxalic acid.
Okay.
That's the chemical bond right there.
Okay.
You're welcome. The giants didn't have better technology than us. They were just more clever than we were. I'm going to let Dr. Charles Koss describe some of this for you. There's a link to his video in the description. So I'm not going to pretend that I know the exact chemical compound or the exact process that they used to create stones like this. But I don't think that I need to. What's really impressive is not just that they were—
You do have to. You have to know. You have to prove this. You do have to. Yeah. Okay.
were able to do this with the stone. I think it's important to understand to what extent they were actually employing this. Let's go back to one of my favorite sites, Machu Picchu. Look around at the other mountaintops. They're nothing like this mountaintop. A mountaintop just completely shaved clean. The ancient Peruvians literally cut the top of the mountain off. That would have been a monumental undertaking. This is another site in Peru, Sacsayhuaman. So large that even knowing—
What? No. There was a dip, and there was a flat enough part, and they flattened it a little bit more, and that's where they made it.
undertaking. This is another site in Peru, Sacsayhuaman. So large that even knowing what we know about how they were able to form these, they're way too big for normal-sized people to have been able to set them. One of my favorite examples, Lion Rock in Sri Lanka. An ancient palace or mansion was built on top of this plateau. We see the same thing with this example. The entire top has been sheared flat and also features different levels. But
there are examples of these existing that are naturally flat topped. What are these called? These are called something. Why can't I remember what they're called? They have them in Arizona. Is it just a mesa? That's the word I was looking for. A mesa, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was. It's not just a plateau. Yeah, it's a mesa. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, these are things. Yeah. Look, there they are. Must have fucking cut that. These are what I was thinking of. Literally this. Like, I was actually thinking of a butte. So plateau is a big one, a mesa is a medium one, and a butte is more, maybe this is a mesa. But anyway, yeah, they happen. They're normal things. I don't know.
the logic of Atlantis is 12,000 years ago, the sea level was 300 feet lower. Just like today, most major cities would have been coastal. And because the sea level rose about 300 feet since the last ice age, most of those cities would be deep under the ocean. And though we can find several examples of Atlantean architecture underneath the ocean in the Mediterranean Sea, we can't find any that are exactly 300 feet. That would be too convenient. We can find some very interesting examples. My favorite example is off of the island of Yonaguni, Japan. This structure's only sunken about 85 feet below the ocean, but when divers discovered this in the late 80s, early 90s, it was first dismissed as a fluke natural formation. However, after years of divers visiting the site, it became more and more obvious that this was in fact a man-made site. There are several footpaths around the base. There are stairways along the side. Stairways large enough for giants. There are two
stairways large enough for giants.
turtle statues, and people have mapped out a logical layout. So now that you know, do you think that this is the ultimate form of this technology? Or do you think maybe they had learned to put these stones into molds and create intricate statues? They couldn't possibly have been carved. Do you think maybe they could have made entire temples out of one solid piece of stone? So so strong that when an invading army was told to destroy this Indian temple, after hours of blasting it with muskets, cannons, and explosives, they could only manage superficial damage to its finest details. So now that you look at things like these vases, or the granite sarcophagus in the Great Pyramid, they make sense now.
No, what? No, stop. No.
Another phenomenon you see, exact duplicates of granite stones. Obviously, these were made in molds. So I guess the only thing I have left to prove
How is it obvious?
that it was giants. Yes, some of these stones are too big for normal humans to have set. That doesn't really prove much. If only the giants had left some sort of a mark, some sort of a print on their work. Something that would give us a hint as to who made these things and how they did it. A legacy or a signature, if you will. If only these giant people had softened that rock and pressed a body part into it.
Their dick? Their dicks? A big foot? The dick? Sizzle reel. So the giants were in defeat? Is what you're saying?
The giants told us that they built these structures. We just chose to ignore that. So now we go back to these images from Göbekli Tepe. Do you think the giants were actually this tall? Because I think maybe they were. Now, if you need proof that this is not...
Okay. My assumption, Greg, is that someone carved some feet, or there's something that looks like maybe they melted the rocks with tree juice and pressed their giant feet into it. Those are the two options. It was tree juice, melt rock, giants, or some people carved some feet. It also could be a situation where we're seeing feet and there's not a foot there, but like, you know, it's probably the tree juice.
Not just some random crap that I've made up so that I can make some sort of sense of my theory here. I brought a secret weapon with me. These are images from a Freemason Bible. Now, I don't know if every Freemason Bible is like this. All I know is that this is from a Freemason Bible.
What I see is workers collecting chunks of clay or earth from the ground and fashioning it into pillars. And in the back, workers are also collecting clay and forming it into these molds. Clearly, the Temple of Solomon was built using geopolymer.
Do you get it?
Clearly? Do you get it? Clearly. It was geopolymer. That's right.
Do you get it? 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 Do you get it?
He's just kidding, chat. He's fine. He's okay. He's fine.
Do you get it? History is a lie.